Welcome, everyone. Welcome, viewers. Thank you for coming to our meeting today for October 15th. We will call the meeting to order at 1:01 p.m. And at this time, I'd ask my council members if there's any added items to the agenda. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mayor Judy Dull. I have an added item for closed session under Section 17, disclosure harmful to personal privacy.
Thank you. I will also have an added item to the agenda. We'll put on the agenda for item 2, and then we'll do the Councillor Ryan's for item 3. And item 2 is closed in our closed session for FOIP 16, harmful to business interests real estate. Anything further? Very good then. I would then ask to go for the adoption of the, move down to the adoption of the agenda as amended. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor. No, you're not Deputy Mayor.
Well, I'll take it, though.
No.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I hope everybody can hear me. Shyla? Thank you. I would make the motion that the regular and closed council meeting agenda for Tuesday, October 15th, 2024 at 1 p.m. be adopted as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. You can just turn that Deputy Mayor down for me so you don't confuse me anymore. Deputy Mayor's over here. Thank you. All right. Did we vote on that? Okay. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Item 2A, please, page 3 of your agenda. This is for our minutes for September 23rd, and I am looking for consensus from council members. No changes, additions, deletions. Very good. We have consensus then for September 23rd, 2024 minutes. Now we'll move down to our bylaws section, page 9, item 3A to start with. 3A is a public hearing, and it will be for bylaw 2024-37, and I would ask Kyle Sloan to approach the podium and introduce. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I would just, I will recuse myself until this matter is, yeah, mic is on, sorry. I will recuse myself until this matter is tended to.
Councillor Wilson will recuse from vote. Did you turn your mic off? Mr. Sloan, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This land use bylaw amendment is an application received from a property owner to rezone the parcel of land at 4609 52nd Street from R2, General Residential, to CHA, Highway Commercial A. The subject parcel is located within the East Olds Area Redevelopment Plan. However, no amendment to that plan is required, as the ARP identifies the land as being within the Highway Overlay District. This district, or this overlay, encourages a mix of commercial and residential uses, aligning with the permitted and discretionary uses that are in the CHA district. Section 4.2 of the ARP states that there are opportunities to expand the commercial base of the plan area provided for in this ARP. Map 4, which is the land use concept map, proposes to expand the commercial opportunities within approximately 70 meters of the center line of 46th Avenue, which is Highway 2A, by enhancing the commercial opportunities along this strip of land. It is possible to take advantage of the proximity to the college and related educational and recreational facilities to create a vibrant strip suitable for coffee shops, bookstores, and restaurants. Commercial developments that serve not only the local residents, but the thriving student population as well should be suitable in this location. The purpose of the CHA zoning in the land use bylaw, similar to Highway Commercial District, the CH district is to provide an area for commercial and other uses located next to a major thoroughfare. However, the CHA district differs from CH in that it's specifically intended to be located adjacent to residential uses and therefore minimizes any external objectionable or dangerous conditions beyond the parcel boundary so as to reduce the impacts to neighboring parcels. For this reason, it is an ideal land use district for the Highway 2A overlay district of the East Olds ARP. I will speak more, but I think for now that's the background of this item as we go into a public hearing, I guess.
Thank you. Mr. Sloan is our municipal land use planner for those that are in attendance, and you may have a seat, and we'll move forward into the public hearing at this time. Section 172 of the Municipal Government Act states, "You may not take part in the discussion and decision-making on any matter in which you have a pecuniary interest." The legislation attempts to ensure that you are not discriminated either for or against by virtue of your membership on council. This I'm reading right now is for the pecuniary interest for municipal councillors. And as you've noticed, we've had Councillor Wilson leave. So my council, no other pecuniary interests. I will move forward. I declare the public hearing open at 1:08 p.m. And I've asked the development officer already, who has already spoke for the purpose and effect. Correct? Very good. I will explain the procedures to the rules to be followed. I see many of you are here to speak. I have a list of 7 speakers that have agreed that they would like to speak. We could either do it in the order, but as I call in support, opposed, or deemed affected, you can choose your speaking time. Presentations before council shall be brief and to the point, limited to 5 minutes. Council shall not allow cross-examination of persons giving information, and it will not be necessary for the persons giving information to verify his or her qualifications. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. There will be no debating or questions from the floor allowed, and no written or verbal submissions will be received by council after the public hearing is closed. Persons addressing council will state their name and your address, indicate if you are speaking on your own behalf or for a client, company, or citizen group. And thank you for signing our list at the entry to the chambers. I will now call for the first time for those who are in support of the proposed bylaw to make a presentation. Those in support? Seeing none, I will now call for the first time for those opposed to the proposed bylaw. Reminding you also there is going to be a section for deemed to be affected if you don't actually oppose it. So right now I'm asking for those opposed. I do have a list. Would you like me to call you up one by one then? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl and Council. Mary Jane Harper, address 4637 52nd Street. I'm strongly opposed to this bylaw. I feel like I'm a bad penny coming up here to speak to Council every time something happens in East Olds that affects our R1 district. And this bylaw would certainly affect all the homes on 52nd Street and 47th Avenue. So I urge Council to think very clearly and do not provide, I guess, a positive motion to this proposed bylaw, because it would affect us all on 52nd Street and 47th Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mary Jane? For those opposed, I'll just go down the list as you've already indicated who would like to speak yes. So I now have Cheryl Mueller. Welcome.
I don't speak in public, but this is very important to me. My name is Cheryl Mueller. I live at 5213 47th Avenue, and I totally oppose this amendment to this bylaw for the land use to rezone Lot 11 and 12, Block 32. This property is the third one in from Highway 2A and in an R2 district, not directly on the highway. It would be infringing up against R1 zoned properties, which would directly deplete the values of these. Traffic congestion already exists at the intersection at Highway 2A and 54th Street due to the high school, auction mart, and a major road into the Olds College. And 52nd Street already has seen an increase in traffic due to people avoiding this corner. Our back alley, along with 3 other residences, will see increased traffic due to the fact that it runs right alongside this property. Pedestrian safety is already at risk due to the fact that they cross Highway 2A back and forth without using designated crosswalks. We would have no input as to what kind of business could occupy this property, many of which would be undesirable to our community. We voice our objection to this amendment to this bylaw as residents and a community. In closing, I will say that I appreciate you to listen to us and our concerns, and we genuinely ask you to hear us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mueller. You spoke very well. We'll go down the list to Maggie Barber, I believe. Maggie Barber? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maggie Barber, and I live at 5201 47th Avenue, directly behind the proposed property. I just moved to Olds, and I love it exactly how it is. When I looked at the property I was about to purchase, I loved everything about it, including my view from the back window and the quiet solitude. I moved from Calgary, where I resided my whole life, and found I no longer loved it due to the amount of people, the growth, the traffic, the noise. Moving to Olds on the east side would eliminate all of that. The house I purchased, as is, just happens to be straight across the alley from the property requesting the land bylaw change. I am concerned this will affect me directly, including increased noise, traffic, loss of my view, parking issues, congestion, and my property value. I am also concerned how this will affect the rest of the neighborhood, as it could allow many more properties to convert, again increasing all of the above issues. I implore you respectfully to please leave our area alone and allow me to enjoy and love my property as I purchased it. If a developer wants to develop, why don't they develop in an area that is already zoned for what they want to develop? Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for presentation to council. We will now move to Mary Wilson, please.
Thank you to Town Council and Administration for the opportunity to voice concerns to this rezoning application. I've submitted my letter opposing the change, which you have before you as part of the record. And I'm going to read my comments just so I don't miss anything, and I too am not a great public speaker. I would respectfully ask that the Town Council to pause this application, have a more complete discussion and review of the East Olds redevelopment plan. Much has changed since this plan was developed in 2014. most notably challenges for affordable housing, college population growth, including the increase in international students, higher density housing, and also the stresses on town infrastructure. When looking at the area map number 2, which I think you have up, the only area on this plan north of 54th Street that is yellow or zoned R1 is 52nd Street, and the houses immediately adjacent north and south of this street. The street where the proposed mixed commercial development is located on is the only true residential street in this area. Building a mixed commercial structure would not be compatible with the existing neighborhood for reasons outlined in the many letters of opposition to this request. I'm not sure about the background of arriving at the number of 70 meters for the commercial development overlay zone from Highway 2A. However, I don't believe the intent would be to place a mixed structure in the middle of this overlay. That is, it being the third lot in from the highway and surrounded completely by residential properties. As an observation, when you look at the commercial buildings along Highway 2A and even Highway 27, one common aspect is that all commercial property is fronting onto the highway without residential in a 360-degree radius, which is what this house would have. The town website indicates citizen perspectives will be critical in the decision-making process and also ensure the community's points of view are considered so best outcomes are achieved. So please consider your decision in the context of taxpayers who live, work, and support our community. The existence of the development plan does not imply blanket approval. This council has demonstrated through previous decisions its pro-development. However, I do believe that denying this application will not deter future development in the town. In my opinion, approval would be like forcing a square peg into a round hole. And sorry, I didn't give my address. So I live at 50 Lake Ridge in Olds, but I own the property at 4603 52nd Street.
Very good. Thank you. Shane Machalis.
Shane Michelis, 4626 52nd Street. All the ladies before me have done a great job, and I just echo the same thing. I'm asking that we have increased traffic. We have a lot of traffic that uses that as a kind of cut around to go around the 54th Street traffic, and I think this is just going to add to that traffic. So I ask you to not support. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Machalis. Brian, Best Western Olds.
We're here to speak on the next bylaw.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Arti Patel, and we are the owners of Best Western Olds. I just wanted to say that this will increase more pollution in the town, and there will be more chances of accidents due to this development. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your comment with us. And I believe last, I have Diane and Ian Lockey.
My name is Ian Lockey. My wife and I and family live at 4638 52nd Street. There's not a lot I can say to I'm just going to reiterate what everything was said so far. Our concern is, first of all, property value. Secondly, safety. That is a terrible intersection to start with. We have a lot of commercial traffic going up and down that road as it is. School buses are using it to avoid the congestion on 54th Street. And we would just like to preserve the integrity of our R1, R2 neighborhood. We've enjoyed these properties, my wife and I and family, 25 years. Mary Jane, you've been there a long time. And all these other ladies, I'm sure. So, yes, we are deeply concerned. We really don't want this to go through. And there's not a lot else I have to say about it. It's just we really want the integrity of our large lots, older style homes to remain as is. We enjoyed them for many years, and we would like that to continue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment as well. Are there any other persons that wish to speak opposed to the bylaw? Okay, please come forward, Mr. Sloan.
Thank you again. I have received 2 additional letters after the agenda package was submitted, so I would like to read those into the public record. They are both in opposition. So the first the first letter said it's signed by 26 residents, many of whom have spoken, but not all. So I do want to make sure that it is submitted. They are opposed to this rezoning for the following reasons. The request leapfrogs over 2 existing lots closer to the highway that are currently zoned R2. The property is directly across from homes that are zoned R1 and is adjacent to a home that is zoned R1. The redesignation could create more traffic at the intersection of Highway 2A and 52nd Street, which is already a dangerous intersection, as it is not aligned to the street across the highway, entering the Olds Aquatic Center. 52nd Street already has more traffic due to the congestion of 54th Street and already experiences more truck traffic. The residents would have no recourse for other changes to the property in the future that could accommodate other CHA allowable uses like gas station, mechanic shop, convenience store. Erodes the integrity of the few areas of East Olds that has properties that are zoned R1, would seriously affect property values of the existing homes, would deny the residents of the area future enjoyment of their property. And again, it is signed by 26 residents with their addresses, and I'll submit this to the legislative clerk. The second letter I have was submitted by a resident, by Elizabeth and Matt Kawahara at 4210 47th Avenue. So Elizabeth writes, my husband and I saw the notice of public hearing regarding the proposed bylaw number 2024-37 in the Albertan this week. Unfortunately, we are both at work on Tuesday at 1 p.m. and unable to attend the public hearing. As residents of 47th Avenue, we have deep concerns regarding this bylaw amendment. It is imperative in our minds that this bylaw does not go through without significant modifications to the infrastructure in this area. I walk to the college every day during the fall and winter months for work, usually in the dark. Along 52nd Street on the south side, there is no current sidewalk. This forces a pedestrian coming from 47th Avenue to cross 52nd Street and walk along the other side. There are no street lamps illuminating this section of 52nd Street from 47th Avenue to 46th Avenue. This makes the crossing with no crosswalk dangerous in the dark, as 52nd Street is becoming an increasingly busy thoroughfare for vehicular traffic. The sidewalk on the north side of 52nd Street also dead ends at 46th Avenue, and there is no sidewalk along the west side of 46th Avenue anywhere. This is a gross oversight when encouraging a mix of residential, commercial, and live-work usage. That's in quotes, I believe quoted from the ARP. Although there is a crosswalk going to the Aquatic Center, there is no sidewalk on the east side of 46th Avenue between this crosswalk and the sidewalk going north. Currently, pedestrians are either creating their own walkway through the snow in the winter on the sloping roadway, or cutting through on the private walkway of the apartment building and then crossing across icy gravel driveways of Mr. Bull and Sushi, Bean Brokers, and Ziggy's to reach the crosswalk at 50th Street. Or, most often, they are jaywalking across 46th Avenue to gain the sidewalk, campus access, and hoping traffic sees them and will stop. It's not just me. There are a lot of pedestrians and cyclists coming from higher density housing along 52nd Street and doing this cut across. Our concern is that increasing pedestrian traffic by rezoning an R2 lot to highway commercial will make an already dangerous area for pedestrians even more unsafe unless the sidewalks and street lamps are addressed. We are also concerned about the safety of the intersection that will receive more traffic. Because the intersection of 54th Street and 46th Avenue gets so busy with auction traffic and folks coming to and from the high school, The next logical way to access Highway 2A is from the intersection at 52nd Street, past the lot in question. This intersection is also extremely dangerous because of the asymmetrical nature of the entrance into Olds College campus. This is the primary entrance for the residents, college visitor parking, and the only entrance to the aquatic center. The vehicular traffic coming from the college has right-of-way over those turning left off 52nd Street, and many of the vehicles coming down 46th Avenue are turning into that entrance. It is difficult to judge when to safely enter 46th Avenue with the traffic demands as they are. Our concern is that the rezoning and development of the third lot in on 52nd Street is going to increase traffic in these already very dangerous intersections and create further disruptions for the residents nearby. We understand that Alberta Highways, or Alberta Transportation, owns 46th Avenue, so who will bear the cost of improving the infrastructure in this area to make it safe for the residents? As council knows, parking is always a concern for residents living adjacent to the college due to students and visitors trying to avoid paid parking. And those of us who are next to the auction mart as people park in front of our residents to go to the auction. Our question is, how will town council ensure that customers visiting this new commercial installation will have adequate parking? The lot facing 52nd Street is actually quite small for commercial use if it is going to house mixed residential and commercial. Naturally, we're also concerned about the long-term strategic move of rezoning one lot that is 3 lots in from the highway. We are curious about what a mix of commercial and residential will look like in this context. Our assumption is the intent to develop something like Uptown Olds with shops or restaurant below and residential above. What will this incongruous building do to the value of the properties adjacent and across? Will there be pressure for them to sell so the residences can be torn down and similar structures be rebuilt? Commerce is good for our town. Our town needs more affordable housing. These are facts. It is essential, though, that in pursuit of these two items, we do not overlook the infrastructure required in order to make them viable and as asset to the community rather than gross liability. Thank you for taking the time to read and hear these concerns at the public hearing and for your consideration in these matters.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan, for reading those added item letters. I will now move down to ask the question for persons deemed to be affected. Are there any persons deemed to be affected? It is slightly different than being opposed, but I see none. I'll open the floor to council at this time. Does council have questions? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I did quite a bit of research over the weekend on this particular item, and I noted that the East Olds area redevelopment plan was actually adopted on October 14th, 2014, almost 10 years ago to the day of today. And, you know, we as council have sat around this table many times and discussed what the effects of our decisions today will do to future councillors. And I feel that we are sitting here today faced with one of those types of very tough decisions to make. And I understand that the commercial overlay is all along there, and it was deemed so in 2014. And I did happen to drive down that highway today on my way to the office here, and I noted that all the current businesses right now are directly adjacent or aligned along with Highway 2A or 46th Avenue. There are none that move inward to the streets, and we as council are always hearing concerns with traffic, congestion, and parking hazards. And this makes a very tough decision to make today. I realize that we're changing the land use bylaw, we're not changing the East Olds area redevelopment plan, but I'm struggling with supporting this, and I need some justification somewhere as to how or why we should support this change. And I find it very unfortunate that the person who's made this application isn't here to speak on this today, and there could be many reasons perhaps why not. But I would think that that person really could have made an appearance to support the decision he's requesting council to make. And those are my comments. Thank you.
you very much, and I appreciate the fact that you noted the date 2014, and I was very involved with the area redevelopment plan. It had significant consultation from the community, but as Councillor Blatt stated, and I will also state, it appears the community no longer agrees with it. Times changed, so perhaps we should reopen the area redevelopment plan and examine the appropriateness of the overlay districts. That's just my comment. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and both you and Councillor Blatz have suggested talking with regards to the East Area redevelopment plan. In 2014, I barely arrived in town myself in that year, and I don't even remember the discussions with regards to this. But my question is that if they wanted to have commercial along in this area, in this overlay, why wasn't it zoned that way? In the original document, having the overlay district seems very bizarre to me to go so far in. And in fact, in some areas, just counting the lots in gray, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going all the way from 46 to 47, seems to be an awful long way for an overlay district. And I'm questioning why it wasn't done as a commercial highway district in the first place. And if that's what they wanted to do, then that's what they should have done at the time. I too question going this far in from the highway. I understand about the commercial development that's been along Highway 2A all along has always been that first lot from the time that I arrived in town. But I do have a problem, and I do think that perhaps this opens up discussion for another round of discussion on the East Area redevelopment plan.
Thank you very much. Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I would like to agree with, concur with what's been said at this point now with Councillor Blatz and yourself, Mayor, and also Councillor Ryan, in that, as Councillor Blatt has indicated, that this was developed in 2014, and mindsets change and priorities change, and I think this is a great time to look at this again and take a review of what the citizens want as far as along this highway commercial exposure. And I agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Ryan in that the way that it dips into the residential areas, it seems excessive. And at the time, I'm not, we're not sure of what their thinking was at the time, but I think at this particular time and moment, it might be a great time to revisit this plan, open it up, and start getting input from our citizens and looking at exactly what is needed here and what our citizens will tolerate. So,
Thank you very much. Councillor Walsh?
Yeah, just some comments. I was part of this process in the East Olds redevelopment plan, and it was put in place for the very reasons that we're hearing today, is to prevent residential areas from being overly developed commercial, because the demand for commercial, because of the college and that was there. The overlay, I think at the time it was assumed people would start on Highway 2A and move in. This is meant to be over many years. I don't think anybody even anticipated that it would leapfrog from 2A into 47th, but it's, I think it was a very good plan. It still is a very good plan, but I think the residents need to be familiar with what Commercial Highway A is. And I think there's a part missing in this whole process when council's asked to change zoning, especially a spot zoning like this. The only beneficiary is the person who applies for it. If they get approved, it increases the value of their land. And I don't want to count how many times I've seen them flip that after the fact and make a little bit of profit on it. So I agree with the mayor. The person that's asking for this should have been here to justify why they're asking for it. So I'll probably not support it to this point. But the overlay, yeah, meant for the future. I think people in that area need to look at those boundaries and recognize that the growth will happen this way. And it's going to happen. If this was on Highway 2A, I'd probably approve it in a heartbeat, because that's what it was meant to do. But given where it's at today, probably not.
When you look in the gallery, or I'm speaking on my own behalf, when I look in the gallery and we speak of the consultation of the day, it's all you guys. It's the majority of you people are still here. And that's East Olds area, that's your home. And again, if or when a consultation happens in the future, I sure hope that you're all back at the table and as eager as you were though in the beginning. Thanks. Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So after listening to everybody, I'm kind of torn. And I'll explain why I'm a little torn on this whole situation, is that we rely as councillors in the governance of the way of the town with these plans. We get citizen engagement, and honestly, 10 years in a redevelopment plan isn't that long. It really isn't. And like the mayor pointed out, she recognizes a lot of you folks from that engagement back then. Now, whether or not we need to re-engage in the area redevelopment plan, I think is good. We should do that, even after 10 years. But right now, the way I read the plan, that's the guidance we have to go on as council on what to do for these areas. And the plan is kind of specific that this overlay area is to be redeveloped in this manner. It seems like that is what the citizens who were part of this redevelopment plan wanted at the time, and that's what they developed out of the plan. It changes over time. My concern here is that what message are we giving to the owners and new landowners and new purchasers of property when they see these redevelopment plans and go, oh, I'm going to buy that property with the intent to develop it because this area development plan allows for it. It wants us to do that. And I seem to be in line with what I want to do with what this plan is talking about. And then all of a sudden we say, nope, sorry, we don't want to do that anymore, in contradiction to the plan. And that's where my concern is here, is that we buy a property in a community and that plan says, let's do this with that property. And then we hear from the citizens in that area that maybe they don't want to follow that plan anymore. Well, that puts a big disadvantage to people who want to develop according to the plans that we create. So I have a concern there with that. But I also hear all the people in that neighborhood saying, we don't like the plan anymore. So maybe the plan needs to change. So I'm torn here with the needs of the citizens in the community, the message they've already given to town council about how they want their area developed, and the people who have bought property in that area to develop the way the community has said they want that area to be developed. So it's a challenge to come up with a cohesive plan that makes everybody happy. No matter what, today, someone's not going to be happy. And we as a governance team need to rely on these plans, or at least to identify if the plans are not in line anymore with the way the community wants things to go. So I support what every other councillor here has said, that maybe we need to revisit the plan. But I still have that big concern about what we're doing to the people who are making financial decisions based on that plan. And then we change our mind halfway through those people's plans. Thank you.
Thank you. No further comments at this time? Very good. I will then, I'm not going to ask the development officer unless you choose, Mr. Sloan, to come for closing and final comments. Would you please?
Thank you. I do have some comments relating to the letters we had received, and they also relate to what we've heard today as well. My first comments will be relevant policies from the area redevelopment plan, and then I do have a couple separate comments based on concerns that I've heard. So, again, as it is written today, these are the pieces of the East Olds ARP that speak to the overlay district or to commercial development in the plan area. So on page 10 and 11 under the residential section, It says the overall intention of this overlay district will be to facilitate compatible development along 46th Avenue and the desire for increased commercial opportunities confirmed through the public consultation process. Page 10 or 11 of the ARP, not of this document, don't worry. Policy 4.2.1 is regarding the expansion of commercial areas. It says new commercial developments and redevelopments should be directed to the following areas as shown on the land use concept map, which is on our screen now. The entire length of the plan area on the west side of 46th Avenue, as shown on the map, is the overlay district. Policy 4.2.3 relates to mixed-use buildings. It says the mixing of residential and commercial uses within the same building is encouraged in all commercial areas within the plan area. Commercial properties within the plan area should be redesignated to allow to an appropriate zoning that allows for both commercial and residential uses to be located within the same parcel of land. Policy 5.2.3 relates to amendments to the land use bylaw specific to the overlay district. An overlay district specific to all properties identified in the land use concept map within 70 meters from the center line of 46th Avenue is to be established. The intent of this overlay district is to manage the land uses along 46th Avenue and ensure that any proposed developments or redevelopments meet the following objectives. And one of those objectives is encourage commercial uses to be established and live-work opportunities through mixed-use developments. Section 4.2 is relating to commercial land use. It says, by enhancing the commercial opportunities along this strip of land, it is possible to take advantage of the proximity to the college and related educational and recreational facilities to create a vibrant strip suitable for coffee shops, bookstores, and restaurants. Commercial developments that serve not only the local residents, but the thriving student population as well should be suitable in this location. Regarding some comments in the agenda, in the letters we received and repeated today, I do have some comments on pedestrian safety and the fact that this is the third lot in from the highway. On pedestrian safety, there are reasonable concerns. In particular, there was one letter that I read earlier that discusses this at length. There are reasonable concerns about pedestrian connectivity and safety in the area. A new pathway on the west side of 46th Avenue may be something to consider discussing with applicants at the development permit stage, as was done recently earlier this year with another development in the East Olds ARP within the overlay district. The ARP does call for a pedestrian path the entire length of the west side of 46th Avenue as these parcels are redeveloped. Regarding it being the third lot in from the highway, it is true that two parcels to the east of the subject lot will remain, will still have residential zoning were this to be approved today. The ARP has those within the overlay district and therefore also intends for them to eventually be redeveloped as commercial or mixed-use properties. This applicant happens to be the first of these three landowners to apply for rezoning. The vision of the ARP should not be prevented simply because the other two property owners have not yet taken steps towards such a redevelopment. If a larger development were to utilize all three parcels, that development would still have to front onto 52nd Avenue because Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors would not allow any new direct access to the highway. There are some actually commercial developments within this overlay district that face the street rather than 46th Avenue. Most of the buildings do face 46th Avenue as they were built previously, but there is one, I can think the flower shop is in an old house that faces onto the street. But that is the only one I can think of that would be somewhat similar to this redevelopment. So those are my only comments that I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see no more comments. Councillor Ryan?
Just for clarification, Mayor Dahl, are we able to ask a question to Mr. Sloan with regards to some of the information he just presented?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay,
Come
thank you.
forward.
Mr. Sloan, can you just tell me, the second point that you had made with regards to the development plan, can you give that to me again? I just want to make sure I'm clear on what you were mentioning. You mentioned 3 points, and just the second one, if you could give that to me again.
Sure. The second one I have is regarding the expansion of commercial areas in the plan area. So that says it's a policy in the ARP that says new commercial developments and redevelopments should be directed to the following areas as shown in the concept map. And then one of the areas is the entire length of the plan area on the west side of 46th Avenue as shown on the map as the overlay district.
Okay, thank you. So the overlay district, is there a list of all of the possible uses for that?
No. So it only speaks to commercial uses closer to the highway that it gives that list of examples of, so it lists coffee shops, bookstores, and restaurants as being examples of suitable uses, but it doesn't have an exhaustive list like you would see in an actual land use district in the bylaw, such as CHA.
So supplemental, Mr. Sloan, would there be a possibility of limiting that usage for the commercial when the development permit is let?
Yeah, I believe there would be. There might be something that is listed in CHA as a permitted use that would still not meet the intent of the ARP, either the architectural guidelines or perhaps it is deemed to be more impactful on adjacent parcels. So any development would have to not only comply with the CHA district, but also all of the policies that are within the ARP.
To continue? Okay, so then there was a mention within one of the letters from the community with regards to a gas station or something like that. We could prevent that from happening within this specific lots.
I can't speak to specific uses right now, but if we were to take a deeper look at the ARP with the lens of gas bar in mind in particular, we may find that the property is not large enough to suitably hold that type of development. There are other things to consider, such as one thing that came up in another letter, I believe, was drive-throughs. Well, drive-throughs, for instance, we have regulations about drive-throughs and their speakers have to be certain distance from the property line, and this property wouldn't be able to accommodate that, for instance.
Thank you very much. I'm looking around the table. I don't see any further questions. Did you wish to speak? Very good. I will now declare the public hearing closed at 1:49 p.m. I'd ask council, please, now if you would return to page 9 of your agenda for the bylaw 2024. We're still going to be we're going to be finishing this off with requesting second reading. Who would like to make? Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2024-37 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you. I don't believe I have any further comments from any council members at this time. Councillor Cummings.
Thanks here. Just before we go to the vote, earlier during the public hearing, when I mentioned that it's a tough decision when we have a plan in place to then deny an opportunity that fits well within the plan from one developer. And I was sitting here thinking how we listen to the public on these issues. And as the governance team, really the only way we can get the most thorough and impactful public consultation is through the development of the ARP. So when I look at that and I go, okay, any professional developer that comes into a community and purchases a property or looks to purchase a property, looks at the statutory plans, the land use bylaw, or area development plans, our municipal plan, all of these plans to develop their properties. If we continually, and this has been an issue in the East Olds development or redevelopment areas, particularly that every time a property comes up for redevelopment, we get a lot of immediate public response. That's indicative of the fact that maybe the plan doesn't fit right now. And I agree with everybody around the table that we need to look at the plan because of the amount of feedback we're getting every time we do something in the East Olds area. I do feel that it's incompatible in governance for us to turn to the plan and throw it out the window when we have a development that fits perfectly within the plan. So I like to keep that in mind here when we talk about governance and how we listen to the citizens that come to us for the redevelopment of their area. As you mentioned yourself and Councillor Walsh mentioned, Mayor, the ARP in 2014 was extensive and involved a lot of consultation and a long time to develop. I just can't see throwing that out right now because currently we're hearing from the local residents that they don't agree with that plan anymore. That's more of an issue of we need to review the plan. But we still have to make decisions based on those plans.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan?
Well, I hate to say this to Mayor Dahl, but I kind of concur with Councillor Cummings. I am total sympathetic with regards to the need for another look at this plan. Unfortunately, this is what was in place. If I was a person who purchased a lot over there in this section of Gray as an idea of developing for what has been basically approved in that area for a mixed use of commercial residential, and then was denied it, even though it was already in the gray, I kind of would be wondering what the heck. And then also, if I was buying in it, and with that purpose in mind, with regards to seeing that it's an overlay district, and I wanted to intend to only have a residential R1, and knowing that there's an overlay district, and I didn't want any changes, I probably wouldn't have bought there. So we do have the plan in place right now, even though it's not perfect, and we didn't expect to see, or somebody on council previously didn't expect to see this leapfrogging. The situation is there that it can be leapfrogged. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got 5 lots going down. It could go all the way to the 5th lot. If somebody could start rather than having it right alongside the highway. So I'm really torn with regards to this, so why we would turn it down when it's already in the right zoning area as it stands right now.
Thank you. It is land use. It's all about land use. I do agree with that because that's what we're doing. That's why we're here right now. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, and I appreciate the comments of both Councillor Cummings and Councillor Ryan, although I'm still struggling with this. And I guess part of my problem with this is when we look at page 11 and we look at the whole entire East Olds area, which is very historic, and there's been a number of lovely homes and long-term residents that have been there for many years, prior to even when I moved to Olds. I mean, it saddens me that R1 is such a small portion of that. And I recognize that we've got an extensive area from 57th North that could be utilized for many of these options, and especially if it goes adjacent to some of the already highway commercial or commercial highway businesses that we have along that corridor. So I struggle with this one piece of property, and I'm not sure that I'm quite ready to support it, and maybe what we need to do is ensure today that we start the process to look at reviewing this area structure plan, redevelopment plan, pardon me.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Councillor Cummings?
Thanks, Mayor. I just have one quick question to administration on this issue. If this rezoning application were denied, does the landowner have an appeal process available to them?
No, redesignation is in council's purview. The only issue which you've all spoken to several times is that now we're in conflict with the ARP, which, to Councillor Blatz's point, should have the direction to administration to initiate a amendment process. But to your question, no, there's no appeal process for redesignation.
So my next concern, if we don't have an appeal process, and as you just mentioned, denying this application would be in direct contradiction to the ARP. Would the landowner have a legal right to take this to a civil matter as a recourse, to saying that our decision runs contrary to our own plans for development in the area, and we've cost him money for development? And that's again, I'm thinking the big picture here when we're dealing with the creation of plans and then not following through with the plans, and what legal jeopardy we put ourselves into when we do that. Again, I would definitely support a motion to revisit the ARP, but while the ARP stands, I'm more concerned about the legal ramifications of not following our plans in a case like this.
People can take anything to court that they wish to take to court, so can't suppose on our liability. However, speaking on my own opinion only to council, generally you have to prove damages were inflicted. It might be difficult in this case, given no development had incurred outside the purchase of the lot, which is in use as its current, I believe, R2 zoning. So low likelihood, but again, in Canada, you're allowed to initiate a civil suit for just about anything.
Well, as the chair of the meeting, I also feel that on all the comments made by council around the table, this really is, appears that we do need to revisit the area redevelopment plan, and we got to remember that the area redevelopment plan was made with future land designations at the time, in the day, and as Councillor Ryan stated with her comments, this is what it ended up. So, what's council's wish? We are now at the bylaw stage, and I have a motion on the floor for second reading. Did somebody put their name to that? Oh, Councillor Walsh? Yeah, Blatz did. Councillor Walsh, you have a comment?
Councillor Blatz made the motion, and I'm going to speak, and I'm not in support of the motion. And I think the issue is the vision that they had at the time. When you hear bookstores, coffee shops, whatever, you put commercial on that, it becomes a scary thing. And I think that's where the problem is. Even CHA is way bigger than what they had envisioned at the time. So, yeah, I agree. Maybe we should be taking a closer look at this zone and really looking at it, whether it's CHA or something else. But for that reason, I will not be supporting this motion.
Nope. All right. No further comments? I will have, we have Councillor Blatz with second reading on the floor. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? Opposed? That's the end of that one. It's been declined. I just want to thank everyone that was here today for your comments. This is going to take a lot of work. We'll still be working with this in the future, today and tomorrow. You're welcome to stay for the second bylaw if you wish. Yes?
Mayor Dahl, in light of the fact that so many of us have agreed that an ARP review is necessary, could we, at this point as a council, ask administration to start that process?
We have, but I'm certain our CAO would like to see that in a motion.
Yeah, that would be ideal. Time frame wise, perhaps leave it open-ended for now, if that's okay.
Would you like to make that motion?
If we could just take us a few moments to write, I'll take a few moments to write one out that I think everybody will be happy with.
We'll take a 5-minute recess. For those of you that wish to stay for the next bylaw, please have some patience with us. This was a difficult decision.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to put the motion on the floor that council direct administration to begin or to forward a proposal to review the East Olds ARP.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? Thank you. And of course, Councillor Wilson was not involved, so he cannot vote. That's carried. Very good. We still have people in the gallery, so we will now move forward to our next public hearing on the agenda. Page 28 of your agenda, please, item 3B. And this is the public hearing 2024-38 Northeast Area Structure Plan. And I will call once again our Municipal Land Use Planner, Mr. Sloan, forward. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. For the past year, administration has been working with consultants with McElhaney Engineering on a non-residential area structure plan for the northeast area of town. Most of this area was annexed from Mountain View County in 2022. The municipal development plan identifies highway commercial uses along the edges of the plan, along Highway 2A and Highway 27, while the interior of the plan is largely industrial. The proposed ASP mirrors this land use concept while providing more specific policies and objectives for future development of the area. The primary purpose of the plan is to ensure that Olds maintains a sufficient inventory of developable industrial land for the foreseeable future, with high-quality gateway commercial component being along the highway, along the more visible areas from when entering town from the north and east. Our consultant is here and with a presentation, but I will wait until second reading for them to present that, I believe, after the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sloan. I now declare the public hearing for 2024-38 open at 2:06 p.m. And I believe all that are here have already heard my spiel on giving your name and address to our clerk when you speak at the podium, if you so choose to. Now, I will call for those in support of this bylaw. Thank you. Please come to the podium if you could. And once again, just state your name, please, and who you're representing.
My name is Arti Patel again, and we are the owners of Best Western Olds. I think with this development, the town can be more developed, and it will be beneficial to everybody who are the residents of the town. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're representing, did you say Best Western?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I will once again call for second time those in support, if you wish to speak. Thank you.
There we go. My name is Brian West. I'm actually a commercial real estate agent with NAI Advent out of Calgary. I actually represent the owner of this parcel right here, 150 acres. It's directly behind us. And also potential buyer of that property, Best Western. So I'm in support of the development, obviously. Looking for a little bit more clarity. I know it's changed its designation over time. The buyer is actually interested in potentially having a little bit more potential for residential at the back half of this property. As far as the rest of it goes, we're very happy with the commercial and the industrial portion of it. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you very much for your comments, sir. Those in support? We'll move down then to those that are opposed. Seeing none, those deemed affected? Seeing none, I'll ask for council if you have any comments. I see none. I will have some final comments from our development officer, Mr. Sloan. Do you have any? None? All right, then I declare the public hearing for bylaw 2024-38 closed at 2:09 p.m. I will now ask if you want to go back, please, to page 28 of your agenda. I'm looking for a motion for second reading. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2024-38 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ryan. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. A third and final reading, please.
Madam Mayor, sorry. I do believe the intention was to witness the presentation.
Yes.
Before we voted on that, but since we've already voted on it, maybe before third reading, we could see the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. You should have stood up, Mr. Sloan. No, absolutely. I was depending on my municipal planner to tell me it's time for the presentation. Thank you.
My apologies for the confusion. Yes, I guess prior to third reading, our consultants are here to present this area structure plan in more detail than I have earlier. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present, although if you're all just going to vote in favor, maybe I don't need to be here. But I do have a short presentation just to provide some more details on the development of the area structure plan, some of the engagement that we conducted throughout, as well as the technical studies. My name is Andrea Rudiger. I'm with McElhaney Consulting, and I'm joined by my colleague Troy McNeil, who is on our engineering side and conducted the engineering studies. So today we're here to provide an overview of the proposed Northeast Area Structure Plan for the Town of Olds. We'll take a look at the technical review, the land use concept, as well as the area structure plan as it's currently been drafted, the servicing studies, public engagement, and next steps for the plan. So the Northeast Area Structure Plan takes up 655 acres of land on the northeast portion of town. The land was annexed from Mountain View County in 2022 with the intent to establish commercial and industrial development opportunities for a growing economy. Improving the financial viability of the municipal wastewater extension was an important goal of this plan, as well as consolidating jurisdiction over the lift station service areas. Facilitating a well-planned industrial park is part of the goal for this plan as well as providing long-term economic resilience for the town. The project timeline, as Kyle mentioned, we began this process last September with project initiation followed by preliminary servicing studies and a background review. We then moved into drafting the ASP in April to August of this year, and now we're working through this final approvals process. As you know, an area structure plan is a tool to guide the growth and development of these undeveloped lands and into a complete community. This particular area structure plan is guided for industrial and commercial growth. In terms of the community vision, so we started with a number of servicing studies. We took a look at the biophysical impact assessment as well as a phase 1 ESA. We undertook water servicing technical review, sanitary and stormwater, as well as a traffic impact analysis. And then we proposed, we looked at the existing land use, natural environment, and some constraints mapping, and then proposed a new land use concept that was in line with the municipal development plan and conducted some community engagement. So the natural environment is a mix of native grasslands and tame pasture with a topography that slopes mostly to the southeast of the property. Approximately 9 wetlands and several man-made water bodies are located within the plan area for drainage. The existing land use is zoned as urban reserve and highway commercial, and most of the land is currently used for agricultural purposes. There are a number of farmhouses, a highway maintenance yard, gas station, hotel, restaurant, and of course this old administration building located on the site. A number of constraints were present on site, which we took a look at in terms of our constraints mapping. A telecommunications tower located on the far east of the parcel lands, as well as some potential chemical and waste storage due to the highway maintenance yard, gas station, and oil warehouse. There are a number of farmhouses which have propane tanks and may include fuel storage and other agricultural, chemical, and non-hazardous waste from farm and agriculture operations, as well as the phase 1 ESA identified 10 areas of concern that would require a second phase of environmental review. The vision and objectives in line with both the annexation report and the municipal development plan are to create a thriving industrial and commercial hub for these lands, to attract business, diversify the economic base for Olds, create an efficient infrastructure system, and establish a diverse commercial area. So the outline for the area structure plan included a draft of the introduction, which includes the purpose, plan area, authority, and interpretation and limitations. We took a review of the planning context and included the natural environment, ownership, existing land use and servicing, as well as constraints. The development concept includes the vision, land use concept and policies, as well as some urban design principles and policies. And then we took a look at the servicing and utilities, including infrastructure and transportation network. Finally, the plan concludes with implementation and process for amendments, including phasing, implementation, amendments, and plan review. The current land use concept, industrial land use with a range of uses, including light industrial and industrial business. The commercial land use is highway commercial, which acts as an extension to Highway 27th or 46th Street. And then the stormwater management, So that's our proposed land use. Moving into our water servicing. So there are a number of things to consider with the water servicing that we look at with the joint servicing studies, which we conducted before writing this plan. So a new treated water reservoir and pump station along the proposed reservoir area and related facilities, proposed water crossing, proposed water main to interconnect to the Discovery Plains ASP water distribution network, and then connecting to the PVC water main and the AC water main. For our stormwater management plan, we looked at stormwater to be drained into 5 wet and dry ponds identified in the stormwater concept based on the natural slope of the land and existing drainage. So these stormwater ponds were determined based on the existing conditions. And then the size and shape of this stormwater management will be determined at the time of subdivision, and some lots may be designated as public utility lots at subdivision. Sanitary servicing, so water concept comprised of gravity mains. We've recommended that the plan area is to have its own system separate from what exists in town due to the natural topography of the site and the site and the sloping from west to east. The wastewater will be conveyed by gravity eastward to a new lift station. Pump flows to the new 1.7 kilometer force main located along Range Road 13 and connect to the existing SRD RWC regional water main. That's a mouthful. And then our transportation network, we also took a look at the proposed transportation. So the plan area is bound by Highway 2 to the west, Highway 27 to the south, and Range Road 12 to the east. The transportation network designed to accommodate anticipated traffic volumes. Local and private roadways will be determined at outline plan or subdivision or at the development permit stage. The internal road network is of arterial collectors and local roads. You'll notice the arterial road proposed to accommodate a significant amount of growth from the west is a long-term solution. So this section on the north arterial road, current traffic volumes don't necessitate that arterial road at this stage. We did conduct a number of public engagement sessions, both online and in person. Those included a project website, social media, community connector newsletter, as well as a municipal minute update, as well as an open house in the stage 2 of the project, which allowed us to collect feedback from residents and business owners in person. What we heard, so there was concern for entryways, accessibility, infrastructure, development patterns, and the environment. Those were the top 5 concerns, mostly around what type of development would be introduced as part of this plan, which would be determined at subdivision when landowners or residents decide what to do with the parcels. And next step, so here we are, public hearing, second and third reading, and then it would be implemented in 2025 and beyond.
If you'd just like to wait one moment, and
Yeah.
I'll just ask my council, do you have questions for our presenter? Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just have one small question, and that is on the land use concept on page 42. We have highway commercial. Yeah. There, okay. So we have highway commercial going up, getting a bit of feedback here, going up to the first possible main roadway going into the overall area. And I'm just wondering why it wouldn't have been brought further along up to the farmhouse? Or is that still a possibility?
It's still a possibility. It could be amended if that's something that you're looking for. This was in line with the land use concept in the municipal development plan and the annexation report. So we sort of followed the direction from those overarching documents.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yep.
fair enough. I mean, I just looked at it and thought it was just a natural continuation for
Sure.
me, but,
Yeah.
and we've always talked about wanting to have highway commercial, so,
Sure.
along Highway 2A and 27, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to Andrea. Could you, for the layperson in me. Could you just give examples? You mentioned, what's the distinction, light industrial versus as compared to industrial? If you could give some examples. And then appreciate your professional thoughts around what would the development, a logical development pattern look like? I know that's an iffy crystal ball, magic 8-ball question, but how would you see potentially that development occurring? Thank you.
Yeah, so in terms of the development sequence, we haven't included any phasing in as part of this plan, but we would foresee the commercial development developing first, but it would be dependent on what parcel owners are interested in what kind of development within the plan area. In terms of the type of development, sorry, your question was light industrial? Yeah, I might defer to Kyle as you have a better idea for your specific land use bylaw, what types might be included there.
Thank you. Again, this is a plan where we have tried to leave it as open and flexible as possible, based on us wanting to be able to adapt to investors, both industrial and commercial, as they come to us. So I can't speak too specifically about the types of industrial that we might see, but broadly, I have seen over the past number of years the types of industrial investors that we do tend to speak with. Many of them are on the ag tech type of, in that type of field where they can take advantage not only of the agricultural industry that is in the area, but also the college that has large partnership opportunities for research and things in that field. So that would be my guess, but I can't speak too specifically.
Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. And my question through you to Kyle, I believe, I'm not sure, or who this might be directed to, but we always seem to come up against the Alberta Transportation, and I see there's a number of access points from this development onto their roadways. Has this been flown by them for any kind of comments back from them?
Yes, this did go through or circulation to Alberta Transportation, and the access points they were okay with. At some point, we did change one access point, but not based on comments from them. This east-west road, the southernmost east-west road, I guess, initially was up here at, I believe, 42nd Street. And based on comments from residents at and after the open house, that was moved down here to be less impactful because this is a residential property right now. That was the only change that came on the transportation side, but yes, the province was okay with this road and the number of access points.
Everybody's good? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. And this may be directed to, say, or Mr. Sloan. So now, next step, implementation. Do we hang a big for sale sign on it now, or what do we do after this?
Directing that too?
Either or.
Essentially, yes. Now that we have a plan, or hopefully by the end of the day, now that we've had an improved area structure plan, then we can try to attract investors who want to develop in the area. Without the area structure plan, it's harder to tell investors what type of products or developments we're looking for. And not only that, but as parcels larger than 40 acres, there's many of them in this plan, we are required to have an area structure plan in place before subdivision can take place. So this allows us to be ready for that subdivision or development process as soon as possible once somebody is willing to come in and invest. There are infrastructure requirements that would likely need to be taken care of before development can actually take place. But again, those investors and those developments would help to pay for that infrastructure.
Thank you.
Would you like to entertain third and final reading while you're on the mic? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dole. I move that bylaw 2024-38 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried, sold. Thank you all for your time. You're welcome to stay for the remainder of our meeting, but it'll be a little long. All right, ladies and gentlemen, page 91. We're going down to page 91, item 3C, bylaw 2024. It's land use bylaw amendment. And again, this is just for introduction. I'd ask for first reading, please. Or motion. Oh, is everybody okay? Good. Councillor Walsh?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I move that bylaw number 2024-41, amendment to land use bylaw 01-23 be given first reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh, for your motion to give first reading as presented. And yes, Councillor Cummings?
Sorry, I'm just trying to get my note here down pat. But I don't normally ask questions at first reading, but this one was kind of important, I think. If we look at page 122, if we could go to page 122 of the agenda package.
You're ahead of yourself.
I am? Is that not the one we're dealing with right now?
No, 91. We're on page 91.
We're on page 91 of the agenda, and I typically no, I don't encourage debate until we have a public hearing or questions.
My apologies, yes, we're on the completely wrong one. I have no questions about 50th Street. Thank you.
Very much. We have a motion from Councillor Walsh on the floor. Those in favor? That's carried. And set a public hearing date, please. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that Tuesday, November 12th, 2024 at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on bylaw number 2024-41.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Page 95, please, of your agenda at this time, and that is item 3D, bylaw 2024-32, Community Standards Bylaw. We're looking for second and third reading. Is there anything further we need to speak to with this regard? C.O. Williams? All right, I would ask then for...
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just one item on the CSB document in front of you. We had something arise. I'm just trying to find the page number in particular here. I believe it's number 51. The section regarding outdoor rinks. Right now, there's a blanket prohibition against building rinks on town property. As coincidence would have it, we had a request come through in recent days where such a request was in fact very reasonable. This involved a family who backed on to a park that the child, who's an avid skater and hockey player, is suffering from a fairly serious medical condition, is unable to play hockey, and the family requested permission to construct an outdoor rink on the town's property. I had our Parks Department look at it, and we saw no issues on why we couldn't entertain that there with proper notifications to the neighbor. Now, while it hasn't been formally approved yet, what I'm asking council to entertain is an amendment to that section with a clause, comma, unless approved by the chief administrative officer, if that is acceptable to council for those particular instances.
Do we have consensus? I certainly don't have a problem. Nope. Very good. We do have consensus. Okay, so now I've got questions, so I'm going to go to Councillor Wilson and then back to Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. And I do have a question related to the CSB. Is now the time to ask it, or will we ask first for the motion, for the reading, or just looking for some direction?
I think you can ask questions. We haven't got a motion on the floor yet for second reading, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And the question through you to either the CAO and/or the Director Andrew, and if I can be allowed a little bit of latitude, I hope everybody can hear me. I find it easier to relate to some of these bylaws and so on with some real-world examples. And so again, if I may be allowed, I think back to our Coffee with Council sessions previously, where we have had some questions come from citizens around noise from the ORE. Very recently, Councillor Blatz had a query or a question from a local resident concerning noise from the ORE, specifically, I think, the flat track racing. So specific to Part 4, regulation of noise, which I think is on page 101, and Section 7, where it talks to the criteria. Just hoping, as I said, either the CAO and or the Director Andrew, can provide a little bit of color for me, generally how our citizens would operationalize this bylaw, and specifically noise. And then to the point, in terms of, say, flat track racing, have we had many or any formal complaints come through to administration other than expressed through the Coffee with Council? Do we know what the noise decibel readings are when those events are being held? Are they excessive? Do they warrant intervention? Because again, to me, at the root of this is the challenge we have is having the ORE facility basically in the middle of town and surrounded by largely residential areas or residential area, where residents have come forward in the past, as I said, through Coffee with Council and expressed concern. So just wondering what avenues are available for our residents, how we deal with this, have we dealt with this? What options are there for our residents who have expressed concern with noise specific to flat track and maybe even other events such as the concerts? Thank you.
Director Andrew, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship, for the opportunity. In regards to the special events or the events that are hosted at the ORE, the first and foremost is that the ORE is not required to apply for a special event permit in any of the functions that they hold on their property. That's been a long-standing practice of their association with the town. So they don't require to seek permission to host events such as flat track racing. It's in their prerogative to do so. Speaking specifically to the topic at hand, Councillor Wilson indicated asking how many formal complaints we've received regarding flat track racing. I don't have that exact number in front of me, but I would say it's less than a dozen in all of the times that it's been hosted. Most of the concerns or inquiries have been related to the noise bylaw, usually citizens inquiring why we're not enforcing the noise bylaw as opposed to making a formal complaint about the request or the event. Our standard answer typically to those concerns are that, again, the ORE does not require a special event permit, so we don't authorize the event, and that if they have concerns about it, that we direct citizens to speak to the ORE directly to speak with them about the impact that it has on them. The other thing, we have conducted some sound decibel measuring at the last event that they hosted this year. Strategic areas around the racetrack per se were measured. We found that the decibel levels were not excessive per se. I believe the readings were somewhere in that 80 to 90 decibels based on location. We found that the noise was actually louder to the east of the racetrack as opposed to the west. That being said, the decibel reading does not give a full picture of what that noise is. The nature of the motorcycles and their modification or the intent of them racing makes them louder than other type things. So to put it in perspective, like a lawnmower running runs at about 80 decibels if you measured it right at the lawnmower. Now, that being said, with the flat track racing, you can hear the motorcycles from across town, and it's just because of the percussion and the revving nature. So it's not necessarily the quantity of sound, it's the pitch and the kind of the wavelength of it that carries. So it doesn't give it a full picture. As far as whether council decides or directs administration to look at options as far as implementing restrictions, the one thing I can speak to with the flat track racing is that they do not start racing until after lunch, and they conclude by 4 o'clock. So it is a fairly narrow window. It doesn't go into the evening hours. Typically, they've gone 2 days, Saturday and a Sunday. And again, we do see these kind of concerns come up from residents time from time for outdoor concerts and other activities in the downtown core, particularly. And so, again, it's council's prerogative how you would like us to proceed with trying to see a solution or putting some kind of guideline in place to minimize this impact.
Thank you. Councillor Cummings, you have the question still on the floor? The opportunity to speak.
I actually did not have my hand up for a question. I was going to pose the motion.
Well, you may very well be doing that. Do we have any other questions? Move forward with your motion then, please.
Yeah, move that council gives the Community Standards Bylaw 2024-32 second reading as presented. Oh, sorry, as amended.
Yes, very good. Thank you. As amended. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Third and final reading, please. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council gives Community Standards Bylaw 2024-32 third reading as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. And before we vote on this, I just want to thank everyone for bringing up what you had to say in regards to this getting third reading. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Turn to page 114, item 3E, please. Now we're bylaw 2024-44 West View Area Structure Plan Amendment. Mr. Sloan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl and Council. The Westview Area Structure Plan was originally adopted in 2017. The landowner has been working on an amendment and has, over the past year or two, been presenting administration with some concepts as they work on that, and is ready to now propose this amendment to the Westview ASP for approval. The changes that they are proposing are large or broad, an entirely new street layout, and a relocation of their storm pond, slight changes to the green spaces, and a slight increase to the overall residential density of the about 100 acres is their plan area. That said, that change in density it equates to fewer than 100 people more than the existing plan at full build-out. MDP policy 10.2, residential density for new neighborhoods, states that target residential density for new neighborhoods shall be an average that falls between 11 to 13 dwelling units per gross developable hectare. The proposed amendment does exceed that at 18.5 units, but the MDP continues to say residential densities that are higher than this shall be encouraged where there is sufficient capacity in municipal infrastructure. The Westview ASP is well served by some of the newest water and sanitary infrastructure in Olds, so there are no concerns from administration there. This is for first reading, of course, but much like with the Northeast ASP, The planning consultants for the landowner in this case do plan to attend the public hearing and present in greater detail.
I'll just note once again, if you have a direct question to our municipal planner, that's acceptable. Otherwise, it's just for first reading at this point. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, I don't like asking questions on first reading of these sort of things, but if we can look here at page 122, I do have a serious concern. Even with the great work of Director Pedro's done in our sewage system, fixing the sewage system, we have had a number of issues with the big purple square in the top left-hand corner of this picture, which is our transfer site. In which we've had to flood the neighboring fields on, I believe it's 4 occasions in the last year and a half. Right now, the proposal is to have a stormwater retention pond in that same area. My concern is, of course, even though we are working at fixing our sewage system, there is always the potential that that's going to overflow or be damaged, and we will need to flood that field. That field's no longer going to be a field, it's going to be a storm retention pond which drains into Little Red Deer River. Cross-contaminating the Little Red Deer River with sewage probably isn't a really good idea. The reason why I'm bringing this up at this stage rather than waiting till the public hearing is so that we can have some more time to maybe come up with some solutions. If there's a solution in the works already, that could be explained to us how we're going to mitigate that problem that we are currently seeing in that transfer station and the proposed land development, which would have us unable to then overflow into the storm retention pond. So that's my concern. I don't know how administration wants to address that concern, if they want to today or wait for the public hearing. But I do believe this is of significant nature, especially when we start considering Environment Alberta, and there would obviously be concerns dumping into the Little Red Deer River through the storm retention system.
The sanitary lift station. Go ahead, CAO Williams.
Thanks, Mayor Dahl. I'll handle that one. So just one thing, this particular storm pond and the diversions into the current area flow just downstream to the main storm pond by the dog park. A very low probability it reaches the Little Red, or Olds Creek, then the Little Red, then the Red Deer. So the broader effect is not a huge risk. But to Councillor Cummings' point, even though our mitigation efforts have shown progress, 2024, for example, we have not seen a lift station overflow event, and we have had continued progress since those significant rainfalls in June of this year. It's always a risk. The design of the South Red Deer Regional System had a surge pond at basically every location from Olds, Bowden, and Innisfail at least, and to date only Bowden's in existence. The current engineering calls for the surge pond, or diversion pond, whatever phrase you prefer, to be built at the town's former lagoon site, which is about 3.5 miles to the northwest of town. SRD, the Regional Commission, did receive a $6.9 million grant in 2023 for that that project to build a pipeline to the lagoon site. That has been deferred indefinitely by the SRD board, and certainly with this process we'll have to re-engage with them to see where that project is at. Even though, again, we are making progress, we can't overlook the fact that we have to engage with SRD on this issue. So I'm confident progress has been made, but we certainly need to look a bit deeper at it.
Thank you very much. That's very good that you were able to stand and wait with us on that. But I'm now asking for first reading, please. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw number 2024-44 be given first reading as presented.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Daly, set a public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that Tuesday, November 12th, 2024 at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the date, time, and place for public hearing on bylaw 2024-44.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Very good. We're now into our delegations and presentations. We have development permits, page 133, please, item 4A. Who we have speaking?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. We have our Development Officer, Nathan Hill, with us to lead us through the next few DPs. Nate, take it away, please.
Thank you, Nathan. The speaker's yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Council. I have a couple applications in front of you this afternoon. First is development permit application 24-155. It's for an attached enclosed deck at 17 Vera Close. It's an enclosed deck that was constructed without permits. This application was a result of a compliance letter that I issued noting that the improvement, and this application is bringing it into compliance. There's a setback of 6 meters in that district off of a rear property line. This improvement was built 4.31 meters off of the property line. As such, council's the development authority on this application. Variance requests do not have a circulation. As such, adjacent landowners weren't notified.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Hill. Does council have any questions? Then, no questions at this time. Then I'd ask for a motion, please. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council approve development permit application DP 24-155 as presented, subject to the conditions listed in the attached draft development permit.
Very good, and thank you very much, Mr. Hill. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Page 144, please, for the viewers. Item 4B. Go ahead, Nathan.
All right. This application is for an attached garage onto an existing home. The existing home was constructed 1.2 meters off of the side property line. We have a setback of 1.5. The variance requested would construct the garage in line with the existing home. Wouldn't bring it any closer, just in line with existing improvements. So, yep. And again, adjacent landowners were not notified of this application.
Well, that's good to know. Do we have questions? Okay, question? Councillor Daly? And go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So just to clarify, the house is already sitting on a variance, and they want to add on to the house with an attached garage. Is that correct?
Through the mayor, yes, that's correct.
Did you have a question or a motion, Councillor Wilson? Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council approve development permit application DP 24-160 as presented, subject to the conditions listed in the attached draft development permit.
Councillor Wilson has the motion on the floor. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. 157, page 157, please, item 4C. Go ahead, Nathan.
All right. The last application is, again, existing improvements, bringing them into compliance. I issued a compliance letter noting that, a deck at this property did not have a permit, and there's an existing addition to the building as well that did have a permit. It was constructed too close to the property line. Originally, a variance was issued to 1.5 meters. It was constructed 0.83 meters off of the property line. This application is bringing that into compliance again.
Well, that's very straightforward. Questions? Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to Nathan. So I'm looking on page, I believe it's 165. So everything that is in the survey report that is outlined in red is also not in compliance, as I read it correctly on the survey report?
That's correct. Everything in red encroaches onto municipal lands. We've issued a letter to the landowner notifying them that we're aware of the encroachments and don't intend to enforce removal at this time, although those improvements aren't accounted for in this permit application.
Thank you, Mayor. So supplemental, Nathan, is that, so these items and structures that are in red is actually on the town easement then, are they not, or town land?
That's correct.
So in your letter, does it say that they need to be removed, or, because I just feel that there's such a precedence here for neighbors to be able to do the same thing and get a letter of saying, yeah, it's okay to do that.
Mr. Sloan?
Hello again. This is a bit of a unique situation in that I'll use this one as an example. All of the properties on the north side of Aspen Close, Alder Close, are on this, backing onto this town right-of-way that has no infrastructure in it. The town does not have any intention of using this for whatever its original intent may have been in 1978. And in fact, all of the properties that back onto this do have encroachments. All of the neighbors are encroaching on this right-of-way. It's either a case of signing separate encroachment agreements with every neighbor, and when it sells, potentially with every new property owner, or having all of the right-of-way subdivided and attached to the 6 or 7 properties along there that have functionally used this, and in fact this right-of-way is within their fence. We've allowed, since the 70s, fences to be built across it at all 6 or 8 properties. So it is functionally a part of all of their backyards. And the encroachments typically in this case are movable garden sheds and landscaping.
Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahlin, perhaps through to you, either the CAO or to Mr. Sloan. But so having said that, that was my question. When you look at page, what is it, 159, I guess it is, when you look at the I would call it the Google Maps, or, the aerial view, all of those properties then have enlarged their properties without being taxed. So they're actually getting the benefit of an increased property, but there's no municipal, I assume there's no municipal taxes attached to any one of these properties.
Go ahead, C.A. Williams.
Thank you. It's a possibility that's true, but land use and taxation are separate. It really depends on when the property was last inspected, and generally the assessor will do the recalculation of the square footage. We could certainly check on this to estimate what we see on our map versus what we have in our taxation system and quantify that, but
Supplemental, Councillor Blatz?
Yes, it is then through you to C.A. Williams. So do you want clear direction on that that's something council would like? Or is that something that you will do? I mean, I realize that this is land use and taxation is different, haven't heard your comments, but I mean, I've got a green space behind my place. I would certainly like to utilize more space if I potentially could. So I think going back to Councillor Daly's comment about setting precedent, I think we need to be very cognizant that these people are in fact paying the proper property taxes.
Right, very good point. But I think for this case, now that I'm aware of it, I would need council direction to check on this myself. It's something that we do as we become aware of it. I am now aware of it, so.
Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and thank you, Councilor Butts, for bringing that up, because I'm going to take it one step further and say if this easement is not being used by the town and have no interest in using it, why would we not just sell them the property? In fact, and get additional funds, and that could be a rider on their taxes for a certain set period of time to pay it back. But I mean, they're using town land, they're getting it, they've been using it for zero cost, possibly for no taxation. And why are we continuing to allow that?
Thank you for the comments, Council, and I do believe our CAO is aware of your comments today, and I'm sure that he'll spend some time seeking out an answer for that in the future. Anything further? Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Dahl, through you to the development officer. So we've talked about one hypothetical or potential issue relative to the municipal land and the encroachment. Just wondering, in general, to speculate, which I hate to do, what would be reasons, other than the property tax side of things, that we would maybe ask for people to either remove their shed or not use that property? I'm just wondering, is there anything else that would come to mind relative to that easement? Thank you.
Thank you again. I don't believe there is anything that in our discussions we've come up with that we would want to use that land for, and therefore ask people to remove these items. The only thing that comes to mind is in the case of a land sale, there are instances where there's some uncertainty around whether or not we will start to do enforcement on this, and then we get requests to write additional letters reflecting that, or again, like I mentioned before, signing encroachment agreements. So there is some administrative time that we do have to spend on these particular properties in those situations that would be mitigated, I guess, by either having that land to belong to these property owners, and then we don't have to deal with that. Yeah.
Councillor Daly?
Mayor, and through you to the development officer, what was this easement initially earmarked for?
Thank you. I'm not too sure on that. There is one, it doesn't show it very well here, but east of Alder Close, it connects to another easement that then goes down and connects to other streets. And I believe that one actually does have infrastructure on it. I don't think they were ever registered laneways or anything like that. But initially, it might have been an idea to bring infrastructure through here, and that never took place. I'm not sure the original intent.
Thank you for the questions. Go ahead, Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the development officer. Could this be an access for emergency vehicles, even though there's no utilities running in it?
I don't believe so, because where it connects on the east is quite a distance away from the nearest access point to a road. So it's not something, not a location that emergency services would be using to access behind here. They would much more likely use the cul-de-sacs, or to the north is the Old Mobile Home Park, and they would use the roads that are within there to get closer to this area.
Well, history is a mystery, but we will find out. Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just a quick question through you to the CAO. So if we approve this application, does it prevent us from looking at the taxation issue and the sale of the property issue? Because just looking at page, what page is this? Page 159, it looks like neighbors have got buildings already encroached on there. There's already permanent, look, I don't know if they're permanent structures or whatever they are, but if they've built a fence on it, that's kind of a permanent-ish kind of structure. But at the end of the day, if we approve this, how does it prevent us from going and looking at other means of saying, hey, you're on our land and you want it and you want to continue to use it, then you need to buy it.
Kyle can correct me if I'm wrong, but generally encroachment agreements are at the pleasure of the landowner, so we could alter those or cancel them. But I believe if council has a particular interest in learning more about this strip and the options available to it, then a separate motion asking administration to bring back information and potential options would be required. But on the encroachment side and how we phrase our agreements, Kyle, do you have anything to add on that note?
Thank you. I do have one thing to add, and it is related to the question. Just the approval today would only grant approval of the variance for this addition, which is not encroaching. So the approval today does not relate at all to the items that are.
Okay, that is the answer we were looking for, so we will move forward for a motion. Okay, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council approve development permit application DP 24-170 as presented, subject to the conditions listed in the attached draft development permit.
We did have a good conversation, however, so thank you very much. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I'm sure somebody's going to make a motion here. Who was first? Councillor Cummings?
I'm not making a motion,
Okay.
actually. If we can go back to page 142, just a little bit of housekeeping, I just noticed. We approved development permit DP 24-155, but the development permit is mislabeled as DP 24-170.
That is correct. On page 168, it states 170.
Page 142.
Oh.
But they were aware of it now. I just want to make sure that somebody
Oh.
was aware of it before we moved on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ryan, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council ask or direct a CAO to bring back more information on this particular easement behind, what is it, just Aspen Close, but the one next door as well. And other easements, as well as taxation. You can bring back more information on that, all properties.
Okay, we will have that worded properly. I'm sure we've caught that. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Ryan, and our CEO Williams is aware, and thank you for your, Nathan, as well. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. We're going to move to page 170 at this time, item 4D, Office of the Chief Administrative Officer Quarterly Report.
Okay, so Q3 report for my division, everyone's favorite division. Invest Olds, Ledge Services, Mountain View Power, Human Resources, and Special Projects. So start with Invest Olds. Some of you attended Sandra's presentation with Mountain View County, and 2 of you are on EDAC committee, so this is more of summary in general. We have a lot of acronyms floating around economic development, and it's something that I enjoy speaking to just to make sure we can delineate them. But overall, the Next Generation Economy Initiative, or NGEI, is what's the name for economic development strategy, what we hope to create over the next year and a bit that will direct, drive, guide our development strategy going forward for the years to come. Within that NGEI is brewed business retention workforce development strategy, and that's what's underway right now. We have hired a consultant, as you can see, and have partner communities from Innisfail, Penhold, Red Deer County, Nehill County, and Mountain View County signed up as Brood members. That's also in addition to Olds College and the Red Deer Polytechnic as well. So another part of our overall Invest Old strategy is the RBSN, Rural Business Support Network. Now this is we are partnered with Community Futures of Central Alberta with Michelle and Ann in our office is hired under them, contracted to us as well. And they have been focused on a more regional effort in addition to what we're trying to do with the NGEI. As you can see some of their stats there, they've been quite busy and quite successful in making engagements with local businesses and businesses in the region. And you can see the communities served go well beyond the scope of the NGEI and Brood, as Community Futures touches many different communities in Central Alberta. EDAC, which is Council's committee, which Councillor Daly and Councillor Walsh appointed to. Their latest subcommittee establishment has been the Access to Capital team, which will eventually become, we hope, that link between potential developers and prospective lenders. And we had great uptake with some local community, local investors, business owners, but also the banks and credit union stepping forward, with 2 meetings being held to date, and some projects which we've reported on before, the retail gap analysis, which was funded by the can't remember the name of the grant off the top of my head, the NRED program, I believe, Northern Rural Economic Development Program. It's about to be completed. We're in the final phase of that, the consultants' work. The rural renewal stream, which is on hold due to more provincial changes. That's where a lot of confusion comes in, where we have people contacting primarily myself or the mayor about immigration queries. This program is basically for businesses, but it gets convoluted with individuals contacting us hoping to get support for their immigration status. So the province has recognized a lot of that, and they have backed off a little bit, and now we're trying to wait for their changes to come. But 30 queries in Q3 with 3 approved, and the Rural Entrepreneur Stream, a much more straightforward program, 19 queries with 2 approved by us. Those, after approval, those of course go to the province and therefore the feds before we get any final word on who is approved to come to Canada, or Olds in particular. Switching to legislative services, just a brief overview of the bylaws that were approved in Q3 by Council. The policies that were either reviewed and approved or rescinded in Q3. And org review. We still keep this top of mind as we work through various things, and out of the 78 recommendations, 45 are now deemed completed, which happened in Q3. Again, any questions, you can ask me at the end on anything in particular, and that link, or orgreviewtracking.xlsx, can lead you right to the overall chart where you can see a full real-time guide to where we're at. Human resources, in Q3 we onboarded 6 full-time staff, 1 temporary, 9 casual, with 2 of our seasonal staff moving to full-time staff, which is always a convenience for us, and the fire department brought on 1. Right now we have 3 vacancies. I believe for 1, an offer letter has or is imminently to be signed, so we have 2 remaining, which is not too bad for us. And we have received our Canada Summer Jobs Grant, I believe, for the 2024 year. Mountain View Power, the fall grant intake is now open, $50,000 available, with October 30th being the close of applications. MVP performance in Q3 has been a modest decline in subscribers, unfortunately, with basically flat year to date. So that just means 0% growth. So we're hoping with some new initiatives we have to grow that in the final quarter. The Olds Minor Hockey Partnership, which has not been officially announced, but you may see it very soon on various advertisements. Olds Minor Hockey has agreed to become a marketing associate for Mountain View Power, where if they, the parents or the board or whoever associated with Olds Minor Hockey signs up a customer to MVP, we will split the profits in a percentage over the life of that customer. So even though we're giving away a larger piece of that revenue pie, a percentage of something is better than a percentage of nothing is our view, so we're just trying to go for bulk subscribers right now. And we'll see how that goes, and the offer has also been informally extended to other groups in town who could use the additional revenue. But the budget is near exhausted once this $50,000 grant program is finished in November, and when council allocates it, but it is on target. Looking ahead, budget 2025 for Mountain View Power, we'll have to think about long-term growth versus short-term funding, as I do believe we need to invest into Mountain View Power to grow it substantially or sustainably, but then also consider that we'll be taking away that short-term funding that the community has, I wouldn't say grown accustomed to, it's only year one or year two, but it is always a great feeling to give away those funds for community projects. A little less sexy to invest it into sustainability, but council can have that conversation when the time arrives. A business plan, I think, is also in order for Mountain View Power. And we have a bit more horsepower behind it in our ECDEV function. And we're expecting one more prudential cash call prior to December 31st. I estimate in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. We've had a little over 100,000, I think, year to date in 2024. Special projects, housing, AHPP submission, Affordable Housing Partnership Program. We are still waiting on Alberta Infrastructure, and so is Alberta Housing. So unfortunately, no word yet from them on pushing forward that application, but we are in regular contact with Housing, and they share our frustrations at the very least. So. And the housing strategy draft is underway, which hopefully we can present it before the year's end, a first draft by the year's end. Business planning, as per council strat plan, is underway in most departments. And on the miscellaneous side, the Olds College strategic planning is underway, which some of you met with the consultants at AgSmart. The town has been engaged officially, and then they've also asked the town to reach out to community stakeholders, such as the service clubs, the Chamber of Commerce, Uptown Olds, the RCMP, the food bank, and a couple other groups to inform the college's strat plan, which is, I think, a great step by the Board of Governors there to bring the community more into the 5-year outlook of the college. And we have meetings mostly set up for late November for those groups, and hopefully to see the final results. The Kiwanis-led warming shack. You may have seen a new concrete pad in Centennial Park on the east side of the outdoor rink. Kiwanis is still waiting, supply chain, etc., on the CCAN structure to be brought on site, but we're still hopeful for a 2024 or early 2025 complete setup for that. But kudos to them for leading and funding this project. It was fantastic. And some of you may recall from our healthcare advocacy, the Rural Remote Northern Program. This has been in place for about 20 years. It basically pays physicians, family physicians, a percentage of their salary as a bonus for working in rural areas. This has been identified as from the town and even local physicians as perhaps the most damaging thing to our recruitment and retention efforts in Olds. Because, for example, a physician practicing in Olds gets exactly a 0% subsidy. A physician practicing in Didsbury gets about a 7.5% income subsidy. Sundry physicians get about 11.3, if I'm not mistaken, percent income subsidy for being more rural than we are. So as you can imagine, and then that varies the more rural you go, up to, I believe, 26%. But as you can see, when you have these regional disparities only 15 or 20 kilometers apart, what that can do to retention and recruitment, and I think we see real life results. Anyway, you've heard me moan about this before. The stakeholder engagement has finally commenced. This Friday is the consultant meeting, so I look forward to participating in that and letting someone else hear my misgivings for a change. That's your sponsorship budget is fully expended. I think you did most of those, so you're aware. And health and safety, we had 13 Q3 reports. A couple WASP stings, which is a new one. The blank boxes generally show ones that kind of fall outside the scope, so that's why they weren't filled in, and some are just missed on the FLHA. The chemical burn, one was a near miss, just an alarm gone off, and we didn't know what it was. The second one was our weed steamer. There was a PPE malfunction or lack of wear, and that caused a small burn, but no lost time was recorded because of that. But there was a question last meeting about our hazard rating on this, and that is basically the scale employees see. And it's probably too much detail for council, we don't need to include in the future, but the long and short, we have to have this on what's called our field level hazard assessments. And employees are responsible for gauging the level of hazards for each task. So that can vary a bit among employees, and that's just carry forward in our stats. So it's not a sound science, but it's something we have in place for our core certificate of recognition program, and that is kind of what it's made up of on the screen. So we do try to work with staff during pre-job assessments in particular, but just in regular safety training to try to standardize those a bit about what constitutes a high probability or a low severity, vice versa. Upcoming and ongoing, as council is fully aware, and it has been in the paper, the town has reached a deal with TELUS Communications to acquire ONET, with a public forum being held on November 5th. Anyone interested in speaking or submitting a response to this decision must do so by November 1st. But certainly a large decision for the town, and we encourage citizens to participate as they see fit. Advocacy. There were many meetings at Alberta municipalities with Ministers Horner, McIver, and Schultz, and a regional meeting, which was probably a little less successful than we'd like with the health minister, but as it goes. And Highway 27, the signalization study is finally complete. Now we just have to meet with Alberta Transportation to figure out who wants to do what, and that's why we're waiting to present it to council, just so we have clear direction on what it says and what the town may be responsible for. But it was a fairly robust report by SEMA Engineering, and we're meeting on October 31st to go through the details of it, and hopefully by mid-November report to council on that. And the potential next steps for Highway 27, outside of the signalization, we obviously have the Highway 2A and 27 intersection. We want to get clarity on from Alberta Transportation on what the future is for that as the college grows and the town grows and that intersection is more and more backlogged. And then also with what we call traffic impact assessments, which are the bane of everyone's existence who ever has to do anything next to a highway. There's been what seems to be a pretty solid plan in the town of Penhold that AT and Penhold took together to study their highway, which I believe is Highway 42, which essentially does all the upfront work for traffic impact assessments based on the statutory planning. So it's something we've been aware of for a little while, and we hope to see if it's recreatable here, because that will streamline a lot of the development issues we have with Alberta Transportation on mainly Highway 27, but 2A also. That's all I had. That's longer than I thought, but happy to take any questions.
Does council have questions for our CAO? Sir Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to the CEO. Just one of your very first slides when you talked about the next-gen economy and the business network, you mentioned the consultant and you mentioned many partners. Can you remind me how that all fits together with Community Futures and cost sharing, to what extent with CF and or partners, the Mountain View County, Red Deer County, Nihil, and so on? Thank you.
Okay, so I'll go back to the start, because so the NGEI from generally it was a standard contribution to join into the Brood strategy for $8,000 per partner, more or less. I believe Mountain View County contributed 10, and overall the strategy is costing us over 2 years, a couple $100,000. So even though it's nominal contributions, it does offset quite a bit what we're trying to do here, and plus bring benefit to these communities also. The RBSN, again, that is through Community Futures. So with the, I want to say $180,000 grant, we matched that over 2 years. And part of that Community Futures funding was that there was going to be a regional component to it as well. So I see it, and me only, that Community Futures half goes towards the regional efforts and our half goes towards the local efforts. But I would say overall having that additional horsepower has been very beneficial to trying to get some of our stalled efforts off the ground. Then there's smaller grants that have come through, like the NRED program I mentioned before. So, and then the tourism grants, which I think you recall were presented last meeting as well, we hope to take advantage of also.
Councillor Ryan?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Dahl, through you to CEO. Just a little bit further on the RBSN, completed 81 business visits. Is that visits to local businesses in Olds, or is it to all these other communities to date?
I believe most of them were in Olds, but businesses all over too, and not just in person. Some were virtual as well, but yeah, most were in Olds, but comprised of businesses from all these areas.
Momentum. And what do they get out of that? Like, what are they trying to? Are they just connecting with them, or are they trying to find what kind of information are they looking for?
Yeah, so these initial visits are more aimed at listening to what the businesses are struggling with and perhaps what their opportunities are, and trying to connect the dots of how the local economy is working in Olds and these other areas. The services provided to date, and some of them are listed on the screen there, there's been a handful of promotional videos made for businesses. Again, mostly in Olds, but now we're branching out elsewhere, and that then goes onto social media, Invest Olds, they can share it. And you'll see some programs, competitions almost being launched by Invest Olds around, sharing types of videos to try to, get people sharing videos and things becoming viral, if that's the word the youth use these days. And then also sharing information on grants and supports and training. And if you have LinkedIn, Invest Olds posts 30 or 40 times a minute, it seems, but a significant amount of time about their videos and sharing information. And a lot of the RBSN is focused on what Community Futures wants to do as well. So they have a little bit of their own flavor that we just pass along to them. And they have then their own funding programs, which are actually largely capital connection programs for financing.
Yes, thank you very much. That was a very good presentation. I'd ask council at this time then if we could please have a motion for the OCAO quarterly report. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council accepts the Office of Chief Administrative Officer quarterly report as presented.
Very good. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Now we will move down to new business. We're just waiting until we get a battery here, I believe. You're good? Oh, okay. You're not next. Okay. Of course you. So, new business, page 171. Policy recommendations, C.O. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. These three policies follow what council saw at the committee of the whole last week, and I have nothing further to add unless council does.
Yes, we've seen these policies quite a few times, so I'll just start with A, if I can get a motion for A. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'd make the motion that council approve policy 102C brand standards as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Blatz, B.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council approve policy 106C, council remuneration and expenses as presented.
Thank you. I will now call for the vote then. Those in favor? That's carried. And C, Councillor Cummings.
I move that council approve policy 205C, rules for flying flags as presented.
I will call for the vote for item C. Those in favor? That's carried. All right, next item of business is on page 185B. This is the Fortis franchise fees. C.O. Williams, who are you?
Dr. Lindemann's with us to lead us through this RFD.
Thank you. So this is being brought forward today to council, requesting council to consider increasing the Fortis franchise fee from the current 17% to 20%. Franchise fee revenue is collected from both Fortis and ATCO as part of an agreement to allow these utilities to operate within the town limits. The town currently uses the Fortis franchise fee revenue to cover the cost of the streetlight, the electricity to the streetlights, and then the remaining revenue goes to offset any tax requirements. As council is aware, with the closure of Sundial, we've seen a significant decrease to the revenue that's being collected in 2024 in comparison to our set budget of approximately $355,773 is our latest estimate to the end of December. So by increasing the Fortis franchise fee, we'll be able to keep the revenue received from the Fortis franchise fee at the same 2024 budgeted amount in 2025, thus not having to increase taxes to cover this loss. So, and just for council's awareness and residents, an increase to the franchise fees bears less of an impact to our residents and businesses than an increase in taxes does, as it's spread amongst all electricity users within town, whereas taxes, there are many exemptions within town, so that impact is spread out a little further. And I'll just open it up to any questions.
Yes, thank you very much. It's important to note for viewers too that that includes all rental units in town and the hospital, schools, yeah. All right, is there any questions at this point? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I don't have a question, it's just one more request for a hike, you know, whether it's going to be water commission fees or Mountain View Senior requisition, or in this case, franchise fees. So it's always unsettling as a taxpayer to have to reach deeper into the pocket. And my only my comment is, in light of the discussion we just had with the Next Gen economy and the business support network, the importance of diversifying our tax base. You know, Director Linderman mentioned the loss of Sundial, which is a huge hit in that franchise fee, and so getting the horsepower from that ECDEV side of things certainly critical to help lessen the burden on our remaining businesses and residences, but never a great feeling to have to up the amount. And I guess a question would be, so we're at 20% now on Fortis, what's next?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but I will say that I agree with the comment that Director Lindeman made that, you know, the taxes are more. But go ahead, I'm sorry, I took your speaker away.
Sorry, when I said what's next, so we're capped, as in what's next. If we needed more, do we apply for more, or this is it? Okay.
This is it, yeah. Once you're at the cap, you're at the cap.
Any further questions? I'll entertain a motion, please. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council approves the Fortis franchise fee increase from 17 to 20% effective January 1st, 2025.
Thank you for that. And of course, we all know how we feel about that. However, speaking, it's a better way to go than taxes. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? Opposed? Did you have your hand up? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Very good. We're moving now down to page 182, please. Thank you, Director Lindeman. Item 5C, Parkland Regional Library Budget. Sorry, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I was asleep at the switch. I just wanted tied in with, if I may, to the franchise Fortis fees, or somewhat linked. I just wanted to give council notification that for the next council meeting, I will be bringing forward, I'd like to bring forward, a notice of motion to request administration to send a letter to the Minister of Affordability and Utilities regarding the utility or the electrical transmission and distribution rates. And I can talk more. I'll go through the process and officially submit the motion, notice of motion. I just wanted to give council that notification. Hopefully it'll get on the agenda for the next council meeting, and I'll speak to it more at that point in time. It was talked about at AB Munis. It's been talked about at length outside of council here and with the government. And I just want to give notice, so, or notification. Thanks.
So that will be in the minutes then, your notice of motion. Thank you. By Councillor Wilson. Okay, I've already moved to the next item. And we don't need a motion for that, do we? I guess I do. Do we need to accept that by motion? No. He's just informing us. He's just informing us. Yes, of course he is. All right. We are now on page 182, please. Parkland Regional Library budget. And nobody, are you speaking to it?
I have nothing to add on this. It's an annual thing, as council's aware, so unless there's discussion, administration has
Absolutely.
no comments.
Well, let's put a motion on the floor, and if you have questions, we can see if we can answer them amongst ourselves. Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor. I move the Parkland Regional Library proposed budget for 2025 be approved as presented.
Does anyone have questions? And Councillor Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to perhaps the CAO, and I was hoping Director Lindeman would stay for this one because maybe she could answer it even better. I noticed in on page 182 where we have the requisition that they're talking about for the town of Olds is based on the population estimate through the Alberta Treasury Board. But in the notes from the library system, they are now using the municipal affairs numbers. So this amount of money will change for the costs to the town of Olds. Because if I remember correctly, the municipal affairs numbers was set at 2016. And we had already fought quite a lot for them to use those numbers rather than estimates. And we have spent several years trying to get them to use the proper numbers rather than the estimates, because we do not have a population of 9,753. So this number then that is being on page 182 of the $4,000 increase is not accurate.
You have a representative. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Walsh?
Well, their whole budget is based on the municipal, it's not based on the treasury numbers.
Right, that's what I'm saying, Councillor Walsh. They're going back and basing it on the municipal affairs numbers, which is not the 9,753 population. It was at the 9,272 or 62 or 52 or something like that. I think it was 52, actually. So this number is not accurate, saying that we're going to have an increase. In fact, we might have a decrease.
I believe, I didn't read this one. I believe that's what they're saying it would have been. What they've done, it would have increased at 43 cents per capita if they had maintained those numbers. But now it will be going up. Oh, I have my speaking notes. But because they've dropped to those numbers, they've had to increase the requisition for everybody. And it wasn't the 43. Okay. Let me go back to my last speaking notes.
I think that was across the board for every municipality that question was raised. Is that correct? That's correct.
That is correct.
That's correct.
Mayor Dahl.
Okay, now I gotta go to Parkland.
I don't think it'll make any difference with regards to past approving the budget or not approving the budget. I would just like to know what the actual number is that we're now paying for library, what the increase is. If we can get that from either, Director Lindeman later on or something. It's not really that contingent. I'm just saying that it's not quite jiving.
You can certainly have Director, our CAO will get that for us later, and Councillor Walsh will bring back some information with regards to the questions. So if we do have a motion on the floor from Councillor Walsh, and he will bring some information back, or did you find that? No, you can bring it back.
Well, I can bring it back.
Okay. Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one quick question here. In the past, or in the future, I guess, would it be beneficial to have a representative of Parkland Library present their budget so they can answer some questions? Because nobody at this table can answer questions on this budget.
I think Councillor Walsh
I
answers.
can
I understand the
speak to that.
difference between someone who sits on the board and someone from administration who creates the budget. Might be a little bit different.
The board has discussed that, but there's something like 65 members, and to have them attend every council meeting to speak to that for everybody would be impossible. And that's, but they will entertain an invite to come and speak to it at some point in time.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Okay, I'm going to have the motion on the floor, and I will call for the vote at this time. Those in favor? That's carried, and look forward to some possible answers in the very near future. Page 207, please. Item 6A, correspondence and information. We have Mountain View Seniors Housing. I'd like a motion to get that on the floor, please. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the correspondence and information report ending October 15th, 2024 be received for information.
Thank you. Are we good? No questions? I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Page 209, please. Chief Administrative Officer Report. C.O. Williams?
Thank you. I only had one thing to add after my divisional report. Regarding compost bins, the seasonal suspension begins on November 1st until a pickup in early January. One-time pickup sometime during the first half, depending on weather, when it's not minus 30 or 40, preferably, and then resuming again in April. So I'd just like to remind residents that based on our calculations of volume per average household, that the roughly 3-month suspension between the November suspension start and the January pickup, we encourage residents to use their compost bins until that time. And generally speaking, that should be plenty of room for a family, for instance, certainly for smaller households. And the compost still is being delivered to the facility outside of Penhold, and it's a great program. And yeah, please use them as you wish during the suspension. And in January, we'll be by to pick them up. That's all I had.
Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, through you to the CEO. Remind me, branch and leaf deposit drop-off? Do we have a depot going? Or is it done?
Right now, it is closed at the moment, but we will be opening on Saturday, October 26th, I believe from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. for one final drop-off point for mainly leaves, I'm guessing. For those residents that require more than their green bin or their mulching capacity can handle. So,
Yes, and I believe that's advertised in our paper as well and online, our website. May I get a motion then for the CAO report? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the CEO, the Chief Administrative Officer report be accepted for information.
I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to our viewers at this time. Councillor Walsh?
I can answer Councillor Ryan's question.
Very good. Let's have,
Based on 9,209 population of Olds, it will be $9.81 per capita, which is a 63-cent increase from last year. Just based, it'll drop down, you're right, from the 9,700, so it was reduced by about 500.
thank you very much. And thank you for coming today, Doug. We will be going into a closed section at this time, at which time we'll, for continued participation in the virtual council meeting, stay online in the live stream meeting platform, and the meeting stream will be replaced by a graphic. And when the graphics are removed, that will indicate that the meeting is ready to reconvene. May I get a motion to go into closed session, please, for 3 items? And the items are item number 1, FOIP Section 21, disclosure harmful to intergovernmental relations, and that's our Intermunicipal Cooperation Committee update. And item 2 is Section 16, harmful to business interests of a third party for real estate. And item 3 is Section 17, which is disclosure harmful to personal privacy. And who would like to make that motion? Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that we move into closed session at 3:41. Do you want Charlotte to stay? With all present, except for item number 3. On item number 1 for FOIP Section 21, disclosure harmful to intergovernmental relations, ICC update. Item number 2, harmful to business content real estate. And Section 17, disclosure harmful personal privacy.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you for your patience. Welcome back to the council meeting. We have reconvened and we'll do our rise and report at this time. So I would like to call on Councillor Blatz for item 1.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council accept item number 1, FOIP Section 21, ICC Committee Update for Information.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Blatz. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And item 2, FOIP Section 16. I think Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council accept the CAA's report on the current real estate state in Olds for information.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And lastly, we have item 3, Section 17. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that we accept the FOIP Section 17 on harmful to personal privacy for information.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. I thank everyone who was in attendance today, and good night. I adjourn the meeting at 4:39 p.m.